Everyone, hi. Hi, good evening. My name is Adam Erikson. I'm the pastor of the church here, and every Sunday morning I start off by saying welcome to Clackamas United Church of Christ. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. That's one of the main statements that we have in the UCC, and we try to live that out. And because not every church has been good at living that out. And so we think it's important to proclaim that every Sunday. As a preacher of the gospel, I like to quote the greatest theologians of the day. And so today I will be quoting the great Lady Gaga. You may have heard of the controversy Lady Gaga was in this last week, and the main point that I want to bring out is that Lady Gaga said this: I am a Christian woman, and what I do know about Christianity is that we bear no prejudice, and everyone is welcome. And that is what our brand of Christianity is about. And I am so grateful for Amira, because Amira has done a lot of work to make this event happen. And so let's give it up for Amira. Thank you. And thank you, panelists, for being here. There are so many of you, and I'm so glad that you are here. And we only have an hour, and so that means I'm going to shut up now so that we can hear all of your stories and what you want to tell us today. So basically how this is going to work is that we're going to hear from our panelists, and then we'll have, if we have time, we'll have a little Q&A. And then at around 6 o'clock, we'll have some food in the back, so we can go back there and continue the conversation there. So, okay?
Cool. Thank you, Adam. So I'm Amira, and I really appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much. I just want to talk a little bit about my personal story with church. I grew up in church and knew at a very young age that being gay was not okay. So fast forward to now, I've been on a mission. We have a spiritual church in Tri-Cities where we're from, but I was on a mission to find a church home here, and I went to a couple places that said you're welcome as you are, but sometimes when people say you're welcome, they don't mean gay. They just mean other things. They don't mean gay. And I've been told, a church that I went to in Tri-Cities before, that I can come, but I can't be like a member. And so finding this church, being a member, being able to be the greeter and hugging everybody, I feel very blessed, and I'm so thankful that I found this. And so I just wanted to bring education to anybody that I can. Do you want to go next, Joel? Yeah. Okay, cool. So everybody will kind of introduce themselves, kind of tell their story a little bit, and then afterwards we'll go back through and talk about organizations or anything specific that they wanted to talk about. Oh, yeah, of course, no problem. We're going to go this way. Sorry. Oh, okay. Or we can go to Joel. Let's go to Joel. Okay.
One second. Let's start at the end. All right, is this? Yeah, okay, it is live. My name's Robin Will. I'm here as president of Gay and Lesbian Archives of the Pacific Northwest. We're your basic queer historical society. All right, okay, that's better. I never know how these things work. All right, and we're about the only queer historical society between San Francisco. There's a small group in Seattle, and I think there's a group starting up in Boise. My personal story, I came out fairly late, after a few years of marriage. Was in my background professionally is the publishing industry, sometimes editorial, sometimes print production. I did believe that everybody who needed to know that I was gay already knew that, and it was nobody else's business. And that lasted until I had a chance to go back to college. I took a class that is offered at Portland State by the Gay and Lesbian Archives, and I realized that Yes, we are a persecuted minority. I haven't had a great deal of difficulty in my life. My whole family was waiting for me to figure out that I was gay, so no one was surprised. But we are a persecuted minority. We've got all kinds of stories to tell, and as a writer and a printer and what have you, I was in a good position to start telling them. So I joined the Gay and Lesbian Archives, and in that outfit, if you stay long enough, they make you president. So.
Good. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Joel Ekdahl, and I am a teacher at Canby High School and the leader of the Safe Club, or GSA, at that school, which, stick around, there's more to come about that. My personal story, so I'm fairly young, I'm only 25, but I graduated in 2011, and that doesn't seem very long ago, but it still wasn't safe to be out in high school at that time. I remember getting to the point of near suicide because I was so conflicted about who I was and what I wanted. And I grew up being one of the guys. I grew up playing sports. I grew up liking all the things that guys like, and we still had the message at that time that if you were one of the guys, there was no way you could be gay. So I went off to college, and as many others, my relationship with church has always been an interesting one. I've always been a believer. My mom raised me that way, but the churches I came in contact with growing up didn't necessarily support the LGBT community in any way. And when I did officially come out at age 20, I met with my pastor at the time, and he told me in the kindest way he could that I was going to burn in hell. And, you know, I still love him, and he's off in Florida doing great work, I'm sure, but I don't believe he understands that part of the Bible very well. And when I went back to graduate school a couple of years later, and I got my degree in English literature, and I knew that my main goal for being a teacher was to prevent people from killing themselves. I teach English, I love English, it's great, but as somebody who was suicidal in high school, I knew that I had to be there for students, and that starts by creating a safe place in high schools for students. One of the greatest days of my life was my interview for Canby High School, because in that interview, the last question was, is there anything else you want to share with us? And I said, me. I said, I have something to share. I said, I'm gay, and I think that's an asset for the school district. I said, I don't think there's anybody else in the school district who is out, from what I can glean, and we need somebody who's out and proud. And I got hired. And I knew from that day on that I could push the envelope a little bit within the school district, because obviously I was going to be supported by my admin. And that's where I met Amira, part of the Living Room, and PFLAG, and all these wonderful groups, and I'm just so happy you're all here. This is really the fruition or the accumulation of all the work that so many people have done over the past 6 months or so. And I'm going to pass it on to Abel, who's equally amazing.
Hi, my name is Abel, and my pronouns are they, them. About 2.5 years ago, I came out as gender nonconforming and pansexual, but I had known that I was part of the LGBTQ community from a very young age, about the age that I started having crushes. But I didn't come out at that time because my family was very unaccepting, and our church at that time was very unaccepting and taught that you would go to hell, or that you would go down a life path of drugs or suicide or general unhappiness, and I didn't want to be that. And so I worked so hard to ignore who I was, and when I did finally come to terms with my gender and sexuality, it was a turning point in my life of ultimate happiness and self-love and self-respect. And I have always wanted to share that experience with the people around me and make sure that the people around me who are struggling with their gender identity and sexuality are getting the support that they need and are learning about themselves, and that everyone is learning how to love themselves. And so I have worked down in Corvallis. I started an LGBTQ retreat and did workshops there. And now that I'm back in the Canby area, I'm working with PFLAG with Amira and Joel, and I'm also working on a GSA at the middle school. So just here to help.
Hello, my name is Dani Rosen. My pronouns are she, her, and he, him, his. I came out basically in about the middle 80s after I had been married for about 15 years. I've always known I've got a side of the gender identity that I wanted to explore, and so I decided that I was going to do that by joining the Northwest Gender Alliance at the time. So I've been a member of the Northwest Gender Alliance since mid-80s, and we've done all sorts of different kinds of things. Currently, I am the chair for the Oregon chapter of what we call GLSEN, and it's the leading national organization to create safe learning spaces for our young people, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation. I work all across Oregon and Southwest Washington. GLSEN has 41 chapters in 28 states. And here in Oregon, I want to stress that we have really great laws, but if we don't implement those laws in the schools and really hold our schools accountable, we really need to support our students in a much more effective way. Personally, I use my pronouns she, her, he, him, his. I think our young people are creating a world, a different kind of gender world, and I've been socialized on the binary. I'm 70 years old, so I chose to use just she, her, he, him, his to respect that world that they're creating, because I think that it would be very difficult for me to truly identify as gender neutral with the socialization I've had.
Hi, my name is Xenca. I also use they, them pronouns. Right now I'm the program coordinator for a nonprofit called The Living Room. I know a lot of you are familiar because of Amira, and also because we came and y'all helped us raise money to get to Time to Thrive this year, which we are so incredibly thankful for. I know that I need to talk slowly, so if I'm not, just let me know. I've been told. But yeah, my kind of personal story, I didn't quite realize that I was a part of the LGBTQ community until like college. There was lots of transphobia and also like specifically biphobia happening in the world that I was growing up in, so I didn't really realize that you could have a crush on a guy and a girl. Like that just wasn't really a thing. And when I figured that out, it was just like light bulb type of situation. But yeah, I came out in college, and then kind of after that started questioning my gender as well, and then kind of 2 a.m. panic text to one of my friends who is also non-binary, and being like, I don't understand what gender is, and they kind of helped me like work through what I was feeling and kind of all the different things that go into that. And then from there, like, I just kind of realized that a big thing for me was having space to kind of figure out who I was, figure out who I wanted to be, and kind of how to be myself. And so I was really interested in finding those spaces and kind of helping others as well when possible. So then I started working at the Living Room, and we'll probably talk about that in a little bit as well. So.
Okay. Full disclosure, this is the first time I've ever had to speak into a microphone in my life, so if I'm not doing a good job, please accept my apologies in advance.
Ice cream cone.
I'm lactose intolerant. I'm also full of jokes. I'm Alicia Owens. I sit on the board of directors for the Living Room. I use they, them pronouns, as many other folks up here have already delved into more eloquently than I could. A little bit about my personal story. I was raised Lutheran. I was raised by my grandparents, and so I had a very strict traditional upbringing. I've known that I was gay probably since I was about 5 years old, because I had crushes on the Disney princesses instead of the princes and the heroes. I don't think I'm alone in that. But I was like heavily involved in a home church until I was about 15 years old. When I was
kicked out of the youth group and asked to leave the church because they found out that I was gay. I wasn't even out of the closet yet. I wasn't positive what being gay meant. I was very much trying to hide my feelings from my family and from myself and from my peers. So I had kind of a rude awakening. So I do want to say that I think it's really amazing that your congregation is so open and affirming and welcoming of people. I think that I have a lot of admiration and respect for that. So thank you for doing that in the community. I'm going to pass the mic to Amira.
Hi, I'm Amanda Russell. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also on the board of directors for the Living Room. So my background story, I came out at 14, but knew I was on the LGBTQ spectrum also, like Alicia, since I was probably like as long as I can remember, because I'd have crushes on like my female teachers and like Disney princesses and stuff. And I had a really hard time with it, and didn't really, it was like I knew, but I didn't want to think about it, and so it didn't really pop back up until middle school, which was probably worst years of my life. We went to Unitarian Church, which was really awesome. They're also open and affirming and make it a point to let people know that about them. There's a big rainbow flag on the church that we went to. But anyway, my middle school was just the culture there was very homophobic, and I was like terrified. So I was like quiet, sort of kept to myself, and was super depressed for a long time. But when I came out to my parents, who were really great, my mom looked for like some kind of youth group or something to send me to. We were in Westland, that's where I grew up, and there was one program that I went to that lost its funding shortly after I started to go, and so I would go to SMERC, which is the youth center, the LGBTQ youth center in Portland, but that's, it's a bus ride, it's a drive. And so my mom and some other people went to the county and asked them if, are there any other, they asked them about resources, and they said, we don't have any LGBTQ youth here. We don't have very many. And so she helped start a PFLAG chapter in Clackamas County. I think that's the one that meets here. I saw a sign out in the parking lot. But she helped, that's from Dani. Okay. I'm not sure where they meet, but there's a Clackamas County PFLAG that she helped start, and then they started throwing a prom for youth, which is where we started taking surveys asking if they wanted a more full-time resource, and we got overwhelming yes responses, and that's how the Living Room was born. And so I'm still on the board and still volunteering. It's been going about 9 years now, I want to say. I don't know if anyone else knows the exact, something like that. So I'm continuing the work, and I love doing it. So.
Also, one of my first times speaking into this, not on a stand. So my name is Crystal. I use she, her pronouns. I grew up as a military brat and was also raised in Black Southern Baptist churches, so very different than the Baptists around here. I never worried too much about sexuality. I just always liked who I liked from a very young age. So I think I bring a little bit of a different lens, hopefully one that is helpful to you. I walk in a lot of privilege, especially because right now I'm married to a man. I have a baby. I present as straight, if you don't know me, so I come out a lot, all the time. And I also have a lot of practice of walking in places with people that have different experiences than me. So it's been very useful to remember to hold space for certain things, even if I don't experience them, even though I am part of that community and things like that. I also do a lot of work with at-risk youth in the foster care system prior to TLR, and also Odyssey in Spokane.
My name is Jesse Wilson. My pronouns are they and them. I identify as non-binary trans, and for me that means that I don't feel that male or female fits me. I grew up in the evangelical Protestant church and Young Life, and the only thing that I knew about gay people growing up is that they were going to burn in hell. I heard that very regularly at church, so I didn't realize that I was gay, or I identified as lesbian at the time, until I was about 21 years old when I fell in love for the first time. And I remember judging my peers, thinking, why is waiting until marriage to have sex hard for you? This is so easy. I'm such a good Christian. Or really, I just had no attraction to the people around me that I was supposed to be dating. So I recognize that now, that I was just judgmental of my peers. I was just really gay. And it wasn't, so I felt very, when I came out to my parents at 21, having come back from studying abroad in love, they asked me not to tell anyone in my hometown because they were in leadership positions at church, not the church I grew up in. They left for leadership transition reasons, as you can probably understand, but they didn't want their peers to find out that their kid was a lesbian because they thought that they would be judged for that. And to this day, I don't know if everyone in their life knows my identity and knows who I am. I don't know if they use my name that they assigned me at birth or the name that I have chosen that feels good for me. But I deeply appreciate the work that you all are doing to educate yourselves and make sure that people know that you are a safe space, because many Christians don't do that today.
To go this way and have everybody talk about organizations and what does that mean?
Okay, organizations. I'm the guy who showed up with all the posters. These are the kinds of things that we take to classroom presentations, pride events, anywhere we're invited. Teaching is part of our mission. Of course, collecting archival material and making it available. One of the big things that GLAPN, GLAPN, it's an awkward acronym. It stands for Gay and Lesbian Archives of the Pacific Northwest. One of the things that we do every year is select a queer hero for every day in June as part of our celebration of Pride, and announce them one per day on our website. You can find us. I brought some business cards. I don't know where they are now, but you can find us at glapn.org online. Nominate anyone, living or dead, straight ally, or any shade of the rainbow who has made life better for queer people over the years. It turns out to be a great big, we put the heroes all on posters, and we have a big reception at Q Center just before Pride. They're all announced on our website, and it turns out that it's a great way to teach history just a little bit at a time, because I'm going into year number 8 of this, which means I have already 210 individual profiles of queer heroes on our website. Makes great reading, and it is a good way to see what was going on in the community at any particular time and who was standing up and working. The posters here explain themselves pretty well. I'm not going to read them to you. I brought the Metropolitan Community Church poster just as a reminder that people of faith, queer people of faith, have always been involved in the community, have always been active, and MCC has always been active. The rest of it, when you get a break, you can come up and take a look at all these things.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. Okay, I'm already feeling there's so many people who are going to talk, right? So I'm not going to waste too much of your time. So very quickly, I run the SAFE Club at Canby High School. SAFE stands for Student Advocates for Equality. And for a long time, it was a way to kind of obscure what we were actually doing, because it sounds like we're just doing advocacy work, but it has been mainly a GSA or a group that supports LGBTQ youth. However, I am realizing more and more that to be a vital group, we need allies. And so my mission as a part of that group has been to reach out to other leaders in our school community and ask them to come to our meetings and be a part of our discussions, because obviously LGBTQ people are not the only ones who are persecuted or oppressed or feel harassed at Canby High School, and that extends to all high school situations, I believe. And as a teacher, I see myself as a facilitator, as somebody who connects people with other people. And I met Amira at Pride this past year, and she was talking about wanting to reach out to her community and do some educational work and yeah, just make a difference. And so the students that I work with in our SAFE Club, they have told me time and time again that they just wish their parents understood. They just wish they could have that one conversation and their parents could look them in the eye and say, I get it, right? And so it got me thinking about starting a parent support group in the Canby area. At this time, I had no idea what PFLAG was, but I got connected with other people, one being Aaron down here, and Dani, and Amir and I have essentially taken over the PFLAG group for Clackamas County. We meet at the Canby Public Library most often, even though we'll have a different place to meet this upcoming month if you want to have that address. And I have met some amazing people through PFLAG, through SAFE Club, and as I look at all of you who are obviously here because you're interested and you want to know more and you want to help, we need all the help we can get. And we need allies, and we need, I mean, honestly, we need Christian allies, because so many of our students grow up believing that their community hates them. And Canby and all the places around are deeply conservative rural places, and they grew up believing that Christianity is not for them. They believe that their community is hostile, and the more times that we can show up as people of faith and tell them that no, that is not true, that there is a brand of Christianity that feels that way, but not all Christians do, then I think we create a safe space outside our school as well. So I invite you all to come to our PFLAG meetings the third Thursday of each month, 5:30 to 7:30. It's a great way to get connected, and hopefully we can connect you to other projects as well. And Belle is involved with PFLAG as well, so I can't wait to see what they say.
Hi. So originally when I left Canby, I swore I would never come back. It just wasn't a welcoming, loving environment for me. And so when I did have to come back to support my family, I made it a personal goal of mine to try and change the community and at least make it better for those who had to live there. The most wonderful experience I've had coming back to Canby is realizing that there are people who want to change this environment just as I did, and that we could all work together. And so originally when I came to PFLAG, my only goal was to start a support group for LGBTQ youth in the community. But really, after speaking to youth here, after speaking to all the different people in PFLAG, I've realized that there are so many things that we can do for each other, such as starting a GSA at the middle school, or for example, I recently am writing up a brochure to explain why gender-neutral restrooms are so important in our local businesses and in our local public areas to support our LGBTQ community. And so I'm just working on all different sorts of projects.
So, as I mentioned, I'm chair for the Oregon chapter of GLSEN. I retired in 2009, and I think I retired the word no when I retired because I kind of get involved in a lot of other things. I'm on the board of Basic Rights Oregon. I'm on a board of the Oregon School-Based Health Alliance. I was involved with the PFLAG chapter here in Clackamas, and they didn't really take it over. They rescued the Clackamas PFLAG chapter, and I am so grateful because we were literally did not have anybody coming to our meetings, and to have the energy and enthusiasm of these folks, I count my blessings that they have rescued this chapter and are doing such great work. So I really count that. Like I said, I go all across the state of Oregon, and there are some places that are wonderful, and there are some places that you would go right next door downtown Portland, and you would go to a school and you think, this can't be Portland. This is not the place that we believe. It's really hard for our youth to be in places where they think that they're safe or they come out. Here in Clackamas, I was working with a school here just last week. 2 11th graders came out. And they came out because they thought that it was a safe place for them to be. And being out, they felt they could connect more with the other people in their school. And they found out that they were ostracized. So the other young men in their school feared having relationships with them because they couldn't have that same kind of a relationship with other men, other boys, before they came out. And so I think there's one of the things that we need to look at is that toxic masculinity and how we ingrain that into our school basis, starting early on. Very few organizations have material for elementary school. GLSEN has toolkits talking about gender diversity, diverse families, and language, starting in kindergarten up through 5th grade, so they have 2 sets. We do research nationally. We've been doing research since 1999, and just came out with the 2017 National School Climate Survey, and actually have a snapshot for Oregon, how Oregon looks. Oregon does 2 other surveys. One's called the Student Wellness Report, and the other is the Healthy Teens Report. And it reflects how much our young people are being bullied and antagonized in our schools. We have great laws. You look at the school district, they have great policies. Look at the student handbook and see if those policies are being implemented, how they're being implemented. And then these 2 reports that are done in Oregon, you can break down to county and school district, so you can actually see what's happening in the counties. It's important for us to know that our young people are in crisis. Our LGBTQ community is in crisis. 50% of teens who identify as trans will attempt suicide. 40%, believe it's 40% that are gay or lesbian or bisexual will try, and 30% who are questioning will attempt. So we really have to work with our young people, provide them the resources and the support. Oregon passed this last year, it went into effect, material for the health education criteria, and starting to talk about gender and sexuality in kindergarten. And there's actual standards for our schools to start doing that. So there's no reason that a school can say, well, they're too young, they shouldn't know, and we can't talk about that. There are age-appropriate ways to talk to our youth. And we need to really hold our schools accountable for that, because if we don't, we're going to lose another generation of young people, and it's really something I don't want to see. I do crisis response for the Portland Police Department. One of the hardest things I've ever done is do a death notification to parents that their child had taken their own life. I don't want to ever do that again.
Okay, so we are going to really quick, and I don't want to take up too much time because we still have to hear from a lot of people, but a thing that the Living Room does is talk about gender identity and kind of all that kind of thing. And we use this tool called the Gender Unicorn, so there's going to be some that are being passed around. And we're just going to kind of go through a little bit, maybe kind of a little bit pared down, so it's not too long. But we'll kind of go through that, and there's so many TLR people here, so I'll let y'all talk about TLR, and I'll just stick to this. So you can kind of see that it uses this little unicorn and then all the little symbols to kind of talk about all the different aspects of identity, starting from the little rainbow with gender identity. And most of these are sliding scales. So if you don't identify with a line on one of these scales, that would be kind of all the way over like where the little like empty circle is. So that being kind of not at all, and then all the way to like kind of to totally, where the arrow is like, yeah, thanks. Thank you, Dani. So again, if you don't identify, you'd be kind of over here, and then if you do, it's kind of all the way over here. So we start with gender identity, and that's kind of in the little thought bubble, right? So gender identity is kind of your internal sense of your gender. So gender that you know that you are, and that kind of comes from yourself. So thought bubble, right? And then you can see that gender expression points to the entire unicorn, and so that's kind of like the gender, the way that you express your gender outwardly. And that's so many things. That can be clothing, that can be hair, it can be a wide variety of things. And so you can kind of be on any of these like little arrows, or you can be on all of them, you can be on none of them. And then kind of moving along, we've got our sex assigned at birth. And so that is basically you're born, and the doctor usually says like, congratulations, it's a boy, congratulations, it's a girl, right? And that's kind of the sex that you were assigned at birth. You can see that there's male, female, and then also intersex. So intersex folks are people whose combinations of hormones, chromosomes, sex characteristics, they don't quite fit into what people would typically consider male or female. So those folks are intersex. And even though, like, I don't know about y'all, we didn't really learn about intersex folks when I was in high school. But intersex people are about as common as people with naturally red hair, which is a lot of people, right? So when we're looking at the scale, if your gender identity matches with the sex that you were assigned at birth, then you'd be what people call cisgender. But if your gender identity does not match with the sex that you were assigned at birth, you'd be transgender. So when I put myself on here, I'm always, like, I identify as non-binary, so I'm always kind of in a mess in the middle here, all the way at the top. But I was assigned female at birth, so I'm over there. And then this one also has physically and emotionally attracted to. And so basically, physically attracted to is your sexual orientation, right? And then it breaks it out into also emotionally attracted to. So if who you're physically attracted to is somebody that you're interested in having sex with, romantically attracted to would be people that you're interested in dating. And so sometimes those things match up, sometimes they're the same, and sometimes they're not. Yay! I know that's a lot, so yay!
Okay, no, you did great. Is it my turn? Yeah. Since there are so many of us.
So Alicia, Alicia and I are on the volunteer committee at the living room, and who has a great explanation of the living room? Jesse? And then I'll talk about it.
I don't know if I should be talking about this. I am also on the board of the living room. I'm the secretary. I've been on the board for 4-ish years. So generally, the living room supports LGBTQ youth in rural areas. We are in Clackamas County, largely Oregon City. We also have drop-ins in Sandy, Estacada. That's it? Okay. And a weekly drop-in in Oregon City. We also have like a multi-pronged approach. So we have our regular drop-ins for youth. This is a space where they can be themselves. Often our drop-ins are the only space where youth can use their names that they identify with, their pronouns, just the way they want to have community. We are a peer support network, so the youth plan all of our programming. We are not perfect at this, and we are trying our best to make sure that we as adults are not, that we are truly including them in an inclusive way. But our vision is to have a space where the youth are felt respected and have control over their own lives and their space, and help them learn how to create community and feel empowered to educate. And we do education in the community, sessions like this. In the past, I know we have spoken to police departments and EMS, first responders, trying to teach the community how to treat youth with respect. So we're trying to directly be a safe space, and Dani can tell you the statistics, but when youth have, 6 safe adults in their lives, like trusted adults, their risk for suicide and harmful behaviors drops to just drastically, like close to 0. So we are trying to create a space where they have those safe adults, and in schools, teachers like Joel, we support those GSAs. So personally, my work with the living room, I was looking for a space to volunteer when I moved back to Portland. I was in Chicago for 5 years in school, and I happened to meet Alicia in the world, and we started chatting about the living room. And I fell in love immediately because I didn't know people like myself growing up, and I think it would have made a huge difference if I did. And the living room doesn't just make a difference for the youth. The first time that I tried out they, them pronouns was in a board meeting, because every board meeting we start with our name and pronouns, even though we all know each other very well. I said, I think I'm going to try they, them, and I didn't get a single surprised look. They said, okay. And the youth have given me the courage to come out in my workplace, even though I was the only trans person that 99% of my coworkers knew in a large Catholic system. The youth are amazing. They know themselves better than I do now as an adult who's 10, 15 years older than they are, and it's an honor to work with them.
So just kind of piggybacking off of that, working with the youth, when I go to drop in, I'm shocked at their confidence. Even when I go to to the school on Tuesdays with Joel for the Safe Club, these kids are so confident in themselves. I was definitely not as confident as these kids are, being who they are. So it just goes to show, having supportive adults in their life, how positive and how great that is. For them. But a little bit more about the volunteer opportunity for the living room. We always need volunteers. Like I said, Alicia and I are on the volunteer committee. We have a training every 3 months. Yeah, we have quarterly trainings. We both help do those. So if anyone's interested, I have information on volunteering. The prom was one of the first things that I got to experience with the youth. I got to sit up front and do their tickets and name tags and stuff in the beginning, and I was just like, I felt like a little kid. I was like, this is so cool. So we would love to have you guys, anybody who's willing to volunteer, do that. And I think that's it. Anybody else have anything? No? Anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Oh.
I actually don't know how to phrase it, in the sense that all of you are out, and there are a lot of people, youth and adults, that are not out, and I'm just wondering how those folks are supported as well. Because sometimes they're not in a position to come out, and they don't have the, I'd say, the bravery of youth. It's so much more accepted now, although there's still lots of barriers. So that's my question, basically.
Anybody want to answer that?
So, as a youth, that felt very uncomfortable and at times unsafe coming out to parts of my family, the ways that I would gauge whether or not it was a safe environment is a lot of times I would start conversations about how people felt about the the acronym, about how people felt about that community, and if, especially at that time where I was very vulnerable, if I got any feelings of uncomfortableness or backlash or disapproval, I would not come out to those people and I would remain very, very closeted. So just having positive conversations about how you can love and respect everybody regardless of where they're coming from or where they're at on their journey can really make a difference in how safe someone feels around you.
Just real quickly, 70% of people in business that are LGBTQ are not out, and they are guarded, and we lose that productivity from those people. And hopefully they have at least one or two, as Jesse was saying, a small network of people that they can confide in and trust. But substance abuse and self-harm is really high in the people who are in the closet.
Thank you, Dani. I think a lot of the work for supporting those who are not out falls on the shoulders of those who are. I'm one who takes that responsibility, and I think I see it as my mission to connect people. As a teacher, as an out teacher, in fact, I meet several students who come to me and speak to me and say, I'm not out, but I want you to know that I am gay, or I'm bi, or I'm transgender, and you know, of course, it's never my place to say, okay, it's time for you to come out, like, you know, get your rainbow flag and let's go hike, right? But I think that just knowing somebody who is out makes a huge difference, right? And I'm kind of the one who connects all the kids. My co-advisor, Aaron Walsh, already did a wonderful job before I stepped in, but we bring in the living room to come speak, right? I always invite the students to go to PFLAG, which no one showed up yet, but we're going to change that. Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard. It's just being present and being available and making people know that there are people in the community who are out and are proud and are there to help. I don't know, it's kind of like being a mini church in a way. I don't want to say that in a heretical way at all, but you know, that those of us who are inspired to do advocacy work see ourselves as having a mission, and that we're always available and we're always on call for those who are wanting to come out or who are wanting more resources, and I think our job is to connect people with the people that can help, right? Okay, Crystal. Oh, I guess we're going to...
Okay, we had something interesting happen in the archives. Along those lines, we had a couple of students interested in women's athletics before Title IX, because for so many years the girl jocks just didn't have any opportunities at all. And so we started a project talking to some of the older women who had played softball, that sort of thing. But our name says Gay Archives. And several of them, women who had lived with other women for 30 or 40 years by that time, who had been active in the community. And this is within the last year or so, had been active in the, athletically for as long as they could, would not talk to us because our name said Gay Archives. And we wound up handing that research off to somebody from the Portland State History Department and keeping the archives, keeping all of the taped interviews and all that at Portland State, simply because our name was poisoned to a certain number of older women in the community as recently as 2 years ago.
My advice would be if you as if you do identify as a straight cisgender person and want to be a safe place for people who are maybe closeted LGBTQ folks, just don't shy away from standing up for the community. I think we are highly attuned to hearing when people do or don't push back, especially these days, and I don't want to get political, but there's plenty of conversations that are happening about whatever legislation, whatever is in the news, whatever people are talking about, and it doesn't matter what your actual politics are. If you as a person want to be a safe space for people, if you stand up for folks that you don't have to, that you don't fall into that community, that you have no personal stake in, but you say, no, I want you to treat these people with respect, and if you are saying something derogatory, I'm going to stand up to that. People will hear that, even if you don't know. I can't tell you how many rooms I've been in where people don't know my identities, and they make comments that I know they wouldn't make if they knew who I was. So I would just encourage you in every space, regardless of who you think people are, stand up for what you really believe in, even if it's scary, because people will see that, and you'll be a safe person for them. And if they need someone to come out to, or just need to be in the presence of someone that they know wouldn't judge them if you knew who they were, that makes all the difference in the world.
I really agree with what everyone here said, and everyone's kind of touched on it. And if you are that safe person and someone does come out to you, please respect that, and kind of like Joel said, like, don't right away buy them that rainbow flag. Maybe they're not ready to come out, and yeah, invite them to church, make that connection, but don't introduce them as like, oh, I brought them here because this is a great church for gay people, those kinds of things. Even at the living room, if we see a youth that we've been working with for a year in the community, we don't acknowledge them until they acknowledge us, because it might not be safe for them to be out everywhere that they are, even though it's safe in our facilities.
Yeah, to add on what Crystal said, any resource or safe person, anyone, if you maybe know someone's LGBTQ membership, and they don't want other people to know, like, we use discretion. There's like a confidentiality that we follow, so like if we take photos at events, we make sure, like, the kids will sign forms, and we would never put photos up of kids at our or anything without their consent, for instance, and not acknowledging them if we see them out. And like sometimes people aren't even like sure themselves, and so unless you hear it from somebody that they're okay with other people knowing, like, never out somebody. It can be a real safety issue sometimes. So yeah, never out someone without their explicit permission.
Any other questions?
Just a quick acronym question. I take it the GSA does not stand for General Services Administration. What is it?
Right? Okay.
So, like many acronyms, it used to stand for something different. It used to stand for Gay Straight Alliance, and it was supposed to be a place where conversation was happening between both communities. However, as you all know, there is more to the community than just gay people, and so it became Gender and Sexuality Alliance, which I think is much more fitting. And even though, I don't know, every school is different. I've worked with GSAs, I've worked with safe clubs, I've worked with other variations. So I hope that answers your question.
I just didn't actually know that, so thanks, it's good to know.
I didn't know that either.
One thing, just as a straight older guy, a person who I've known for years and worked with Jobs with Justice, his name is Jamie Partridge, and I have the greatest respect for him. He is so involved with every area of justice. I mean, he's there everywhere. So he showed a picture on Facebook, a painting of him when he was a young guy. Like, this is me when I was 22. So I always had a question, well, Jamie, who painted it? And he said, was my lover. Well, I was the first I ever knew about it, but I'd known Jamie for, gosh, probably 20 years. I think it's really essential that more people, and I know what a fearful thing it must be because you've all expressed that people know gay people because they get to know a person, a human being, not some caricature of or their think so. That you bring a face to it, and I think that's so important. And a question, you're talking about volunteers. How do you see a straight person fitting in to like a safe place that you're talking about? Expand on that.
Like, you mean if you were volunteering? Yeah. Be kind. Just who you are. Just anybody else have... that's the main thing.
I don't know if the volunteer folks... My 2 cents is that allyship is so important in every movement, in any group of people that is oppressed. Folks who don't belong to that group can have the biggest impact. And all of these youth have, I'm sure all of these youth have experienced straight, cis, not trans people who they have felt not safe with. So if they see a straight person there who they remind them of their parent, of their grandparent, whatever the person is, and they see you being kind and caring about what they have to say and hearing their identities that maybe you don't understand, and you say, I don't understand that, but I respect you, and I accept that this is your experience, and I love you anyway. And maybe you don't say I love you because, I don't know how well you know them, but you just, but you don't shy away from that, even if you don't understand it. And I think that has a lot of power. And yes, absolutely, it's important to see role models that you see yourself in, and most of us are just queer as all hell, right? But seeing allies there too is vitally important too.
Two quick examples. One, a school board policy, it often attracts people to speak out against a policy of supporting, for instance, a gay-straight alliance or gender and sexuality alliance in a school. And they'll get people coming in. If we don't have the allies of our community, if we don't have the ally parents of straight kids coming in there and saying this is healthy for our school, we don't get that policy passed. The other time that straight is important is when we start looking at things in our community. If we have communities, for instance, downtown, you'll walk down the streets, some of the streets, and they'll have signs in the businesses that say, we accept everybody. We accept this. And they don't just say everybody. They list it out. They say, these are the people that we support. These are the people we acknowledge. These are the people that we want in our community. And it's our community. It's the way we support each other and acknowledge each other, whether we're Muslim or religious or gay or race or immigrant, whatever ability, whatever our ways that we can support our community, we all can be allies to each other. And that's an active verb. That's not a passive. You have to take action to really be an ally. And Jesse said that earlier.
I want to give a shout out to the program I Am Jazz. Follows a family I watched for 3 years now where they have a transgender child. And it really shows the problems that people face and the decisions that they make. And it shows not only the transgender youth, but parents who accept and support that child in spite of all the negativity around them. It's really an example.
I Am Jazz, that's what it's called. Fantastic. Thank you, Peg. And thank you all for coming and talking with us. I think Joel said that kind of your idea is like kind of like a church. And you are the best of what a church could offer. And I am so grateful that you came to our church and modeled for us how to be in a loving community. So thank you for being here. Yeah, let's go ahead, clap. Yeah, thank you.